Hey, Table Rock Fishing Intel Pro members, Eric Frey, Focus Fishing Guide Service, Table Rock Fishing Intel. Got another video fishing report for you for Table Rock. Sorry, it's been a couple of weeks. Holidays, everything else going on. Today is January 1st, 2024. So we get you the first day of the year, get you your first fishing report of the year. Bite's been pretty good. It's changing, it's moving, the fish are moving, water's finally cooling down. We'll get into that in a minute. As far as our lake level is concerned, we're at 910.38, so a little bit more than 4.5 feet below normal winter pool. Core has been moving a lot of water, and I think that's kind of affected our deep bite a little bit, so kind of touch on that here in a minute. Water temperature 51 to 53. It's pretty much what we saw all day. We're down here in Baxter. We caught a few, took a little bit of time to figure them out, took a little bit of time for the sun to pop out and really get the fish moving and get the shad moving, but we'll get into that in a minute. Of course, the best way to know, you guys being Table Rock Fishing Intel members, watch those daily reports, weekly reports. We have been a little slack over the holidays, but a lot of stuff coming in the next couple of weeks. But thanks for being Table Rock Fishing Intel members. If you're coming down though, you're going to fish the lower end of the lake. I was on the lower end last week, and our best bite was up lake, up in the Long Creek. We found quite a few fish out there, fairly deep. They weren't as deep as we're catching them on the main lake. Most of those fish were in 30 to 45 foot of water, basically glued to the bottom around schools of shad. The biggest thing with the deep bite right now is finding those schools of shad. Most of the fish we caught that day either came on a jewel scuba spoon or came on a jigging wrap. We did have a couple on a Damiki, but most of them were on the scuba spoon and the jigging wrap. And most of them, it's that deal where you can see one, maybe two fish on the bottom. You drop your bait down to them and you get it all the way on the bottom and lift it up, and all of a sudden you'll have several of them come up. And when you hook one, the bottom will kind of explode. But most of those fish were anywhere from about 35 to 45 foot deep. Some as shallow as 30, but the bulk were 35 to 45. There is a crankbait bite down there as well, especially, you know, rock crawler, wigglewort, that sort of thing. You get a windy day, a cloudy day, especially a south wind day, and you can catch them on a crankbait down there. Most of them on those transition areas. The river area or the up the creek, up Long Creek, seems to be better than in the main lake, where you got a little bit of color to the water. And then other than that, I've talked to a few guys catching them on a jerkbait, but they've not had a lot of success down by the dam yet. But other than the deep bite, crankbait bite, you've got a decent jig bite down there as well. A lot of them coming on the Pee Wee HD football jig, and a lot of them coming on a heavy cover football jig. Most of those have been smallmouth around some sort of cover, whether it be a brush pile or standing timber. And they're anywhere from 18 to 25 foot deep. Main lake points seem to be best with the amount of water they're drawing right now. It's really got the smallmouth on those main lake points around that wood cover, especially when shad is coming by. Go in the mid-lake area, same sort of bites are working in the mid-lake area. You've got a decent deep bite. You got a decent deep bite all over the lake, but you get a decent deep bite with either a shad shape on a drop shot, or a Damiki rig, or a scuba spoon, or a jigging wrap. A lot of those fish there have been coming out a lot deeper. My best bite in the mid-lake has been on main lake points, on main lake flats, but they've been much deeper, anywhere from 50 to 80 foot deep on the bottom. There I am seeing a lot more fish on the bottom before I drop to them, so I can kind of move around with my trolling motor, use my forward-facing sonar to see the fish out in front of me, get over top of them and drop on them. And those fish have been a lot more active and a lot more likely to bite when I can get over top of them. So that's probably my best bite in the mid-lake area. I know guys are catching them excuse me, on a crankbait in the mid-lake as well. Most of them, again, transition areas on the main lake, where you're going from a gravel point or a gravel bank and it changes over to chunk rock and then ledge rock, basically right up on the bank. You're not going to get a lot of bites, but it's been some better quality doing that. The jerkbait bite has been a lot better in the mid-lake area. I've talked to a couple of guys that are catching them on both the megabass and the McStick around standing timber. Seems like that bite's probably going to get better as we get some gizzard shad moving up, but they have been catching a few doing that. And then always you can catch them on a jig in the mid-lake as well, whether it's the Pee Wee HD football or Pee Wee HD spider jig around brush piles. You've got to have wood, whether it's standing cover or it's a brush pile. You've got to have some sort of wood to get that bite to work. Up the James, I haven't been up the James, but I talked to a buddy of mine who was up the James last week, and he said there's a decent deep bite mostly on a spoon and a jigging wrap. He didn't really fish a drop shot or a Damiki at all, from about Ants Creek up to about point 12. You get above point 12, and he said you're not seeing as many deep fish out there. You're just not getting the bites out there. But there's a lot of shad on the main lake. Most of his fish came on the channel swings, but on the flat side of the channel swing, not the actual bluff. He was fishing the flats, fishing those long points, 30 to 40 foot deep, kind of the same thing that we saw up Long Creek last week. Most of the fish right on the bottom, see one or two, drop to them, the bottom would explode, and you get a lot more bites that way. Other than the deep bite up there, you've got a decent crankbait bite up there. One of the better crankbait bites is up the James. Again, you're looking for those transition areas where it goes from gravel to rock to ledge rock. Put the boat basically on the bank, 10, 12 foot of water in parallel, and just cover water. You're not going to get a ton of bites, but there's been some better quality largemouth and smallmouth up there. And then we're finally starting to see some fish on a jig, on a shaky head, on those rocky kind of flats up there, the stuff that we normally fish in the fall. Those fish are finally starting to show up on those flatter banks that have got rock and brush on them. You can throw either a football jig or a shaky head up there and catch those fish. White River, where we were today, we're out of Baxter today. Really, we didn't have a great deep bite to start the day. Had a lot of cloud cover, had a lot of wind. We could find some shad, but we really didn't find the schools of shad till the sun started to pop up. And once we found the schools of shad, we started to get bit. Caught a lot of short fish today, most of them out on gravel. We moved, got out in the channel, got on the edge of the channel where the trees were, and that's where we caught our better fish. They were near the trees or in the trees, most of them on either a scuba spoon, a drop shot rig, or the jigging wrap. Did have one nice black today on a jigging wrap out of a tree. They're a lot deeper than we normally catch them though this time of year, guys. Most of them were 50 to 70 feet deep. I was fishing with Corey today, and he even said his sweet spot was that 60 to 75 foot range was where he was catching those better fish, or at least getting his bites right there. And again, drop shot rig with a shad shape, Damiki rig, jigging wrap, and a scuba spoon. Further up, I talked to a couple of guys who fished up around Shell Knob before it got cold, before the holiday. They caught them on a jig and a shaky head fairly well, mostly on those gravel transition points where you've got a little bit of rock mixed in. Jerkbait bite's been hit and miss, but then the crankbait bite up the Kings has been really strong, anywhere from Viola on up. Hit those channel swing banks with a rock crawler or a wiggle wart, catching a lot of fish up there shallow doing that. So a lot of bites going on, a lot of different ways to catch fish right now. And of course, you guys know, best way to stay on top of it is use your Table Rock Fishing Intel Pro membership. And of course, if you're wanting to learn that deep bite, now's the time to come. You can catch them doing a variety of things. Like I said, we caught them on a drop shot, scuba spoon, jigging wrap, Damiki rig. All those baits were working today. And that's the nice thing about coming out. You can learn the different, where do you find the shad, where you find the fish, how to use your electronics, cover all that if you want to come out and do a deep trip right now. If you want to do that, give me a call. It's Focus Fishing Guide Service. You can reach me at 417-860-4743 or hit my website, focusfishing.com, where you can book online or shoot me an email. Either way, I get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks for being Intel Pro members. Thanks for watching the video. Can't wait to hear from you. We'll see you on the water.